Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on alscoop.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, Season 5, Episode 6. I'm John DeCarlo, joined once again by Kyle Gauss, who's currently eating a gummy bear, Graham Foley, who is also eating a gummy bear. These are our pod snacks. Got gummy bears, gummy worms.
I don't want to blow past the fact that Graham, before we turned on the mic, said that sometimes gummy bears make him sick, but not gummy worms.
Not gummy worms. I mean,
Strange man.
It's the same product.
Love you to death.
I don't know about that one, Kyle.
It's a different print.
I think we'll have to learn.
How's that possible? Essentially the same.
I mean, I wouldn't eat them that much. I just feel like when I was little, my memory gummy bears, always Haribo, different.
Sure, yeah.
I just always felt sick after them, so I stopped eating them.
They're kind of like sugary and
yeah, but this is
it was different than gummy worms.
This is like when somebody gets upset that their sandwich is cut diagonally instead of horizontally.
I understand.
No,
Did you get upset? Were you like that?
No.
Right.
I'm saying if somebody did, it's the same goddamn thing, Graham.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right. It doesn't make any sense that it did. I think it's
a podcast if you didn't swear 2 minutes into it.
It's 2019.
We're back.
Anyway, we've got a lot of interesting stuff to go over this week. Basketball recruiting developments have heated up for Temple. We've got a lot of football to go over as well. Of course, Temple won its season opener 56-12 over at Bucknell, a game they were never really challenged in. Got plenty of mailbag questions, so we'll get right to this. And of course, we have an interview coming up with Colin Thompson. Colin, as we told you guys, is going to be joining us periodically throughout the season. We're also going to be doing video previews on Twitter and Periscope before games. So we'll have another one before the Maryland game coming up in a couple of weeks. So we'll be talking to Colin in a little bit, get his impressions of Temple's win over Bucknell. And but let's get right to the game itself. We'll get to the basketball recruiting stuff in a little bit. 56-12, as we said, Temple scores on its first 4 drives, was never challenged, save for that pick 6 from Anthony Russo that gave Bucknell its only touchdown. What stood out to you guys about what you expected? A lot of storylines with Ramon Davis and all these other guys who contributed, Jaden Blue. But what stands out to you guys from Saturday?
I think just the offensive game plan. I think we talked about this a little bit where we were expecting it to be you're a superior team here. You should be able to just run it, and then see what you have in Ramon Davis, see what you have in Jagger Gardner, see what you have in Kyle Dobbins, and figure it out. And that really isn't what they did. I mean, they set the program record for passing yards in the game. Anthony Russo became the first Temple quarterback to have multiple 400-yard games in his career. And they just took advantage of the fact that Isaiah Wright, Brandon Mack, Jaden Blue are all a lot better wide receivers than Bucknell's cornerbacks are. Mm-hmm. So I was surprised by that. I was impressed, obviously, by Ramon Davis. I was actually pretty impressed by Jagger Gardner, too. I thought he showed a little bit. Granted, he only played about the first half, but I'd say mostly just the look of the offense, which I think was very basic, and they didn't really show that much. Despite that, they still put up a lot of numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Russo, we were all kind of wondering, would there be any rust there after missing 2 weeks with his injury in the summer camp? And he didn't look, his best in the first quarter. He missed a couple wide open throws, a couple touchdowns, but he recovered, and that's the benefit of playing a team like Bucknell. And he ends up 32 of 41 for 409 yards. He looked great, and just kind of plugging my own story too. The up-tempo offense looked great the entire game. They looked really fluid. They're getting the signals quickly. They were snapping the ball right when it was there, and there wasn't a single false start, just a snap infraction on Hennessy at one point, which is a really good sign right off the bat, because that's something too that's going to correlate no matter the opponent, just getting the signals and getting it quickly. Everything was very fluid, and I think it was just a good start.
That stood out to me as much as anything else because, I probably said several times last season that I thought Dave Patno, there were a couple people who teased me for defending Dave Patno, but Russo comes out and basically says, I think that the signals are coming in much better than they did last year. That was an issue for us. So you wrote that in your story that they met a couple times a week, right?
Yeah, he made it sound like it was him, Brandon Mack, Isaiah Wright, Randall Jones that kind of got together and said we need to make this a point for next season. So they brought it up to the coaching staff, and they made it sounds like 1 or 2 meetings per week, 45 minutes to an hour, where they sat with the coaches that give the signals on the sidelines and just went over every single one, until they couldn't forget it. It showed. So it looks like, I'm not sure if that's something they're going to continue all season, most likely, but they said during camp that was really their main focus.
Yeah, Kyle tried asking Rod Carey about it in yesterday's American Athletic Conference football coaches teleconference, where he said, can you walk me through this, and he said, I will not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough. I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting him to say, well, this day I bring in a little whiteboard and I map out what the colors are going to be. This one's going to be gritty, and I didn't expect anything like that. But I thought maybe just getting some logistics. But yeah, I mean, he referred to it as a tactical advantage of theirs.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because NIU didn't really do that. They didn't go fast that often. NIU, they only averaged 71 plays a game. They kind of had like a 60-40 running split, and everything we saw just fundamentally wise against Bucknell did not match up to the NIU offense. I don't know if that's necessarily a sign of, well, hey, I'm coming in, I'm evaluating the personnel, and I'm realizing I have 3 really good wide receivers and a good quarterback that we can't kind of try to fit a square peg into a round hole here. Or if it's a situation where, hey, it's Bucknell, we thought the biggest advantage on tape was Brandon Mack's size versus a lot of freshman defensive backs and freshman linebackers. And I'll be curious to see what, not this week because of the early bye, but next week the game plan looks like against Maryland.
And Russo specifically said afterwards that Mike Yurimovich is salivating at the opportunity to have this much talent on his offense. And so you have to think he really just took this team and figured out what was best for them and just kind of implemented the system. And I thought it was interesting, too, Russo, when walking through those meetings, like kind of didn't – it felt like he didn't want to throw Pat Note under the bus, but he kind of shading the fact that, like, they would look to the sideline. He said it would take them 5, 6, 7 looks before they finally got what the correct signal was. And, with all the chaos that was constantly on the Temple sideline, mostly on defense but also on offense, that, maybe it just was too much. And it's interesting to see if this kind of more traditional system can work.
You would almost call it mayhem.
Mayhem, exactly right.
And then the next day, Anthony Russo tweets about how he wouldn't want to play for any other coach than Rod Carey.
Yeah, I asked Rod about, well, not necessarily that. I was going to throw that into the question, but, yeah, Russo seems to be, I don't want to say going out of his way, I think that's the wrong way to phrase it, but really endorsing the staff so far. Again, they're 1-0. It's easy when you're 1-0. It's easy when you're, playing one of the worst FCS programs, or a program that's coming off one of the worst FCS seasons last season. But, yeah, Russo offers a really strong endorsement of the staff and a really strong endorsement of Carey, just going out of his way to talk about how the signals were great, everything was crisp. That was an issue last year. And then I think, when you put something like that on social media, it's a ringing endorsement. It's coming from your quarterback, which is important. I asked Rod about that yesterday, not so much about the tweet, but just, I said, when you get that from your field general, what's it like? And Rod kind of dismissed it and said, well, I mean, the credit goes to him. He's worked really hard, but things could be worse. You could kind of slog through a sloppy victory against a team like that, and if there were false starts, if there were signals coming in, the narrative could have been like, well, even against a bad opponent, it's a new staff. But they looked, with the exception, like you said, of Russo misfiring on a couple of throws, or on the pick six where he locked in too long on David Martin Robinson, and he gives up the pick six there. Played really well. I agree with you, Kyle. I didn't think they would throw it as much as they did, but speaking of the running game, Ramon Davis. Jagger Gardner, as you said, looked pretty good. 10 carries, 54 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked good in the limited time he was out on the field. Ramon Davis, some people will say, well, again, you're playing Bucknell, but he looked fast. I mean, he really accelerated on that little pass out in the flat that he took in for the 51-yard touchdown reception. I don't know. Again, it's 1 week, but looks like a guy that they can build around.
Yeah, I thought, the screenplay for Ramon especially is kind of where he stood out. He talked about he's lost 25 pounds since he got to Temple in December. Maybe he got there in January. He was an early enrollee, January. He lost 25 pounds since then, and he had that burst. It was interesting because whenever you looked at Ramon on paper coming in, you said, okay, 5'9", 230, this is going to be a guy that's thick, that you can really just kind of pound the ball with. And no, he's more of a finesse guy than you would have thought. His tape backs it up, and then he's starting to see it actually on the field too.
Yeah, and they used Jagger Gardner kind of, more traditionally. You knew that he would probably get, a handful of carries. It's kind of doing their due diligence with him. And he had the couple touchdowns just punching in at the goal line, but it really was Ramon Davis that kind of flashed as the guy who could burst away and get that breakaway speed, which is really important for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jagger looked good at times. He had some spin moves that have to absorb some contact in the red zone that should be helpful, and that will probably continue to be his role. I think they're going to end up running the ball a little more than they did against Bucknell, but I think it's going to end up being what was a running back by committee is kind of a shared situation between Davis and Gardner.
Jaden Blue obviously stand out. Team high, 10 carries, 10 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. All career highs for him. We have a mailbag question, I believe, later on in here about Jaden Blue. I think we do. But a guy that had really just been playing well in practice, and now finally puts it together in game. Defensively, on the other side of the ball, what stood out to you guys there? Again, they weren't really challenged much of the game, but a chance for a couple of guys to flash. They only had a couple of sacks, but again, did what they were supposed to do against an inferior opponent.
Yeah, I would say despite only having a couple sacks, they had a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Ifan Maje had his first career sack, had 2 tackles for a loss. Karama Diabate, who lost the battle to Ifan, also got in there with a sack. I think they created a lot of quarterback pressures. I would say the defensive line played well. I would have thought that they might actually get to the quarterback a lot more, but they forced some throws from that, some hurried throws. But other than that, if you read my Grading the Group article on the front page of OutScoop.com, the authority on Temple Athletics, I would say it's interesting to me that Linwood Crump and Harrison Hand weren't targeted a single time. That can be a combination of the fact that Bucknell did have to force some throws, or that the quarterbacks, because they played 3 of them, were aware that, hey, we shouldn't try to target these guys, but they played basically 30 snaps each. Neither of them had a ball thrown their way. So I think anytime you can hold a team to no offensive touchdowns, it's a pretty good day regardless of the opponent.
Yeah, and to add on to that, no matter who the opponent is, if you're getting 3 quarterbacks in the game because no one's having success, then obviously you're doing something right. It just seems like a more conservative approach that, there was no ridiculous pressure or anything, though. They're just playing their game as the better team, and it worked well, especially Maje. 5 tackles, 2 for a loss, including the sack, and he really lived up to what people said he could be.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing with the offense, though, I think you're going to be able to generate more pressure and get better stats when you actually blitz, which I don't think they blitz much, if at all, against Bucknell.
Not a lot of blitzing.
And why would you? I mean, you're a superior team.
Yeah, they did exactly what they were supposed to do, and again, as you said, didn't have to show much. We'll get a little bit more into the Maryland game. Again, there's an early bye, so Temple's off this week. They host Maryland 2 weeks from now, a little less than 2 weeks from now at the Link. Maryland is coming off a 79-0 win over Howard. In their opener, Josh Jackson goes off for 245 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was able to come out of the game early, so they had a real easy time with Howard. Again, how good is Maryland? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
I think
they'll
have a better idea after this weekend when they host Syracuse.
Yeah,
Syracuse is a legitimate team, though. This is going to be a good game. I think you'll have a better idea.
Yeah, so let's go to our interview with Colin Thompson. Again, Colin, we'll play this for you in a second here. Colin, as I said earlier, is going to be joining us throughout the season for post-game coverage, or pre-game coverage. And he's going to be on the podcast occasionally throughout the season. So we're going to go to this interview now with Colin that we recorded, just getting his take on how Temple looked. He, in case you guys missed it, is a part of the 97.5 Fanatic game day coverage, sideline reporter, former Temple tight end, former NFL tight end. So here's this interview with Colin, and we'll react to it on the other side. All right, so joining us on the line is Colin Thompson, former Temple tight end. Colin, as you know, if you've been listening to The Scoop, has been joining us periodically on the podcast, joining us on our pregame coverage as well. Colin is joining us once again from Cape May, New Jersey. You just told me before we started recording that you are volunteering down there coaching a middle school football team?
Yeah, doing a little volunteering while I'm not with the NFL team right now, still training full-time, and then volunteering with the lower Cape May regional middle school team, 7th and 8th grade kids. So it's been fun.
Before we get to the Temple game here, tell me what you're like as a coach. What are you saying to these kids? Are you instilling the fear of God into them? Are you a player's coach? What kind of coach are you?
I think I'm a little bit of both. I said I would never make kids do up-downs and make kids run laps because I hated it. But 2 practices in, I had the whole offensive line doing up-downs. So, it brings attention to some things that are important, like we can't jump all sides, or can we just pay attention in the back so I don't have to coach it 4 times? So your patience runs pretty thin. And today I got tested. Our head coach couldn't be there right away, so I just came in. I had to go to the middle school, help them get their pads that they left overnight. It's a whole thing. I'm asking questions. Coach, I forgot this. Coach, can you do this? I was like, oh my God, I need to get back in the NFL.
That's great.
So it was good, but I think I'm right in the middle. I put my arms around the guys after practice is over, but in practice, I would love for them to pay attention a little more.
There we go. That's good stuff. Well, let's get to Temple's 56-12 win over Bucknell.
Yep.
Like a lot of people, we said this was going to be an easy game. They weren't tested. They scored on their first 4 drives, weren't really tested, with the exception of that Anthony Russo pick 6. They look pretty good. Just off the top of your head, general takeaways, what stood out to you from Saturday?
Well, I think it was good to see Rod Carey's group, the outfit, the way he's going to handle things. That was my first takeaway is congrats to him. What an unbelievable win coming in after Manny Diaz to do what he did, turn the focus around, have senior leaders buy into what he's doing, and then have the leaders portray back to the team the way he wants it done. It's pretty impressive what they've done. They look good. They look clean. They look sharp. Defensively, they look really buttoned up. The question will be, as time goes on, what's the rotation going to be in the front four? Obviously, the linebackers were super impressive. I mean, Sean Bradley looks like he is on a mission to get drafted as high as possible. I mean, he is running sideline to sideline like a cat. He looks fantastic. It was good to see Chappelle get out there and knock the rust off. I did see him come off the field. Is there any update on him?
Not that I know of.
He came off the field in the middle of the game, and then they walked him back through the tunnel. So that's a question maybe to ask at the presser. But overall, offensively, I think Anthony would even be a little frustrated himself. Anthony Russo, he missed 2 touchdown throws early on, and then he buttoned things up a little bit and completed some short throws and got some confidence. I think Blue surprised us. He came kind of out of nowhere. He got more touches than Randall Jones, but I think Randall Jones can do a lot of great things too. He didn't have really any catches, I believe. So overall, a great start. Congrats to Coach Carey. They look buttoned up. They look like they're going to have a really good year. I was excited to see what they did. And I thought Anthony Russo responded well after not a good start.
Yeah, Colin. So I mean, we talked a little bit about this before the game. That you thought, hey, the game plan might evolve a little more with the tight ends. They might run a little more, and then they go out and they set the single game record for passing yards in the game at Temple. Do you think that was maybe more of a result of the fact that, hey, they realized that Randall Jones and Isaiah Wright and Brandon Mack and Jaden Blue were just that much better than Bucknell's cornerbacks? Or do you think that maybe that is a little bit of a glimpse that they realize they have these wide receivers and they might be throwing the ball more than people think?
That's a great question, Kyle. I think it's a little bit of both. For example, Temple was going to play Navy last year, and Ventel Bryant absolutely lit it up because Ventel Bryant is better than those Navy corners. They just don't have the athletes. So I think it's a similar thing with Bucknell, and I also think it is a glimpse of what we're going to see offensively with Temple. I said on the broadcast, it was on 97.5. I do the broadcast on 97.5 The Fanatic, but we bounce around throughout the year, as you guys know. But for people listening, myself, Harry Donahue, and Paul Palmer do the broadcast on the radio for the games. But I said on the broadcast that this is going to be, instead of a 5-yard run with Rockwell Armstead and maybe a home run hit every 10th run, because I think it was probably Rockwell's rate, his clip, it's going to be a 5-yard catch, 5-yard catch, 5-yard catch, boom. Blue makes a guy miss, hits it for 30. He did it like the second play of the game. So to me, instead of the 5-yard run, it's going to be taking what the defense gives them. Anthony's going to flick it out there on that little out route to Mack, or the little out route to Isaiah, and it's going to be just 2nd and 5 instead of a run. So I do think the run will continue throughout the year. I don't think they're going to bend to it, but I do think they're going to take what the defense gives them. And until they run the ball a lot, they're going to get a lot of zone. They're going to have a lot of guys dropping, so they're going to have a lot of short completions available. When they start running the ball later in the game, later in the year, when it gets a little colder maybe, they're going to have some one-on-one matchups, and that's when you'll see Brandon Mack and those guys stretch it down the field.
Now, Colin, something I wrote about was just how Temple used an effective up-tempo no-huddle offense throughout the game, no false starts, really just one snap infraction to Hennessy. How difficult is it, as someone who was on the offensive side of the ball, to get those signals communicated and be basically perfect at it in the first game of the season?
I think it's very hard, right? You're watching these other teams around college football. These games are kind of sloppy and ugly. Notre Dame game last night in the first quarter was pretty sloppy. What was the game the other day that was real sloppy and tough? Well, Florida-Miami on the week 0. That was very tough to watch at times. With so many false starts and holdings and just it just was a lot of unorthodox things that they weren't happy with. So I think it's very challenging. And again, that's why when they said, who's your player of the game, Colin, on the radio, I said it's Coach Carey and his staff. It was clean. It was an organized outfit. There was no guys running the field late. There was no chaos. It looked very organized. And again, Harry Donahue always says that this coach is all about blocking, tackling, meat potatoes. Like, it's just the plane. It's just straightforward. So it's going to be interesting to see how the season goes on. I didn't like some things on the sideline. I thought it was kind of dead at times. If you watch the sideline after big plays, I just thought guys weren't as excited for players. That doesn't mean they're not going to be a good football team. I just worry about in big games when they're down. Is the sideline going to be down? Is the sideline going to be up? Is there going to be excitement? Because I do think there's something to it. I don't think you need to be the Jeff Collins sideline with the signs and the craziness. But I do think maybe somewhere in the middle, energy-wise, because I did see some dull faces and some slumped shoulders at times out of the Owls, even though they were winning big over Bucknell.
Colin, is that it? That's an interesting thing. I hadn't noticed that. You think that's a player thing? You think that's a reflection of the coaches, or is that just it's a 56-12 game and it just is what it is, or where do you think that comes from?
Well, early in the game, I didn't see it. So to me, I do think it starts with the coaching staff, and this is not a shot at the coaches. This is their style. Again, I'm not a coach other than 7th and 8th grade studs.
Yeah.
That's a different story. But me personally, I would like some energy out of the guys on the sideline. I mean, there's something to it, especially if you're not playing in the game and you're not playing. I think, guys coming on the field, high-fiving players at their touchdowns, a big first down play. Get excited for your guys. I'm not saying you got to be running up and down the field going crazy, but I just saw not as a ton of emotion. I do think, yes, some players are getting used to playing in an empty stadium. I do think there is something to blowing out Bucknell. But I do think, like you said, it is primarily on the coaching, but the senior leadership group's got to want it as well. So it's a little bit of both. It's something that I personally wanted when I was a captain, a senior, but that was what our program was at the time. So, again, they do it their way. Hey, they just blew out Bucknell. They can do whatever way they want, But you're only as good as your last win, right? So you got to win, you move forward, mimic that against Maryland, and everything's okay. And I look like an idiot for complaining about how things were on the sideline.
Colin, one of the things that in relating to Graham's question here, Anthony Russo after the game made it a point to talk about how the signals were coming in, and he seemed to really just want to go out of his way to compliment Mike Uranovich. And then after the game, I don't know if it was after the game or the next day, put out a tweet saying there's no coach I'd rather play for, kind of as a tip of the cap to Rod Carey. Is that, here's a guy who's been through a few head coaches now. Is that the quarterback, one of the leaders of the team, kind of going out of his way to say, hey, I want it to be known that we're really embracing this guy? Is that a big deal in the locker room when a guy does something like that?
I think so. I think, right, social media is very impactful now. It's much different. I remember 2000, Kyle Friend was still there. I caught a 2-point conversion against UCF, and I jumped into Deion Dawson's arms. And I posted that picture on Instagram. There was some racial things going on in the media with some racial crime things. And I wanted to post a picture with no comment of me and Deion hugging because he was my brother. It didn't matter with the color of our skin. Again, I know this may be a little off topic and maybe a little different tone, but at the time, Deion and I were the only one who talked about doing it, and no one really knew what the picture was, and Colin just posted a picture of hugging his teammate. So, but again, there was our team rallied around that, and we had conversations about social injustice and things like that because it was an important topic at the time. I will loop back to the Anthony Russo thing because that's kind of off topic, but you get my gist.
Sure.
The Anthony Russo, him posting, I think it does send a message to the team. I think it sends a message to the fans. I think it sends a message to, all his friends and family. Like, hey, we have a really good thing going. We have a coach who really wants to be here and stay here. We've also said that about every other coach that's come through Temple. So, again, I back to your original question. I think it's a great thing by Anthony. I've talked to Anthony personally before. He said the whole entire team is bought into what they're doing. This was before training camp. So that's a great sign. That's a credit to Coach Carey. And, again, that's why I made him player of the game because that is really hard to do. He wasn't the first pick, right? Coach Diaz was. He comes in. He's confident. He seems great with the media, very upfront. I like the way his team's responded against Bucknell. Great start. They have a great bye week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do against Maryland. But no, I think Anthony sends a message to everybody that, hey, we're on the right track. We're doing the right thing.
Colin, one last question before we let you go. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say after 1 week and a game like this. What do you need to see cleaned up before they play Maryland? And Maryland's coming off a big blowout. Now they've got a game coming up against Syracuse. There's still a lot of film to be seen, but what's maybe one thing that Temple needs to clean up before they play again in 2 weeks that you saw that needs to be cleaned up?
I just think coming out hot. Anthony missed those 2 throws early, and he hasn't really missed the deep balls. He's got a great deep ball. He missed one to Isaiah late. I mean, again, the guy had an unbelievable game, and I still didn't think he played that great. But I looked at the numbers, and I'm like, wow, I sound like an idiot right now. He just threw for 400-something yards. So, and he threw for 4 touchdowns, but he probably could have thrown for 6, 7. And, Anthony will be critical on himself, too, about things. He's a hard-working, humble kid. But for me, what I need to see is exactly what they've done so far. I thought the offensive line communicated at a high level at the pressures that Bucknell brought. Anthony was virtually untouched at times, which I think will be a common thread. And then I'm looking forward to I want to see what the rotation is defensive line-wise in these big games. Mm-hmm. Who's going to come in, who's going to step up and get after the quarterback. We have been fortunate as Temple fans and as a Temple player to have had great defensive linemen throughout my entire career. From Jake Martin to Praise to Dogby. Oh, man, the list goes on and on with those guys. Sharif Finch. I'm drawing a blank, but you guys get what I'm saying. There's a ton of talent at that position, and they always used to roll guys through. So what's that going to be? That's what I want to see. And the corners really didn't get tested this week in the game too much either. So we're going to have to see what they do in the back end, what they do up front defensively. But no, it's great that they have this little bye week here. Maryland's, this is a must-win against Syracuse, in my opinion, for them to keep their confidence going with a new coach. So they're going to get some great film out of the Syracuse game, which is really beneficial to Rod Carey and staff.
Colin, great stuff as always. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you a week from Saturday at the Link.
Yeah, we're going to do a little K-Lot action. Bowles isn't going to screw up the mic this time.
That was on Kyle. We all know it was on Kyle.
All I'm saying is it worked for every other thing. So
I want to talk to some people. Maybe we'll do some food sampling, a little less stiff. It was actually a good trial run for us. Not that we were stiff, but I want to get it loose. We're going to have some fun. We got to have some fun.
That sounds good.
Let's do it.
That sounds good. All right, buddy. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, boys. Go out.
All right, so some great stuff there from Colin Thompson, who is taking time out of his schedule now from coaching 7th and 8th graders in Cape May.
Some studs,
he said.
I'm not a coach, except when it comes to studs.
He's living the life right now, just hanging out in Cape May, waiting to get a call from the NFL, occasionally talking to us, coaching kids up.
I'm going to be in Margate Friday and Saturday, so Colin and I will be weathering the storms with the hurricane coming up.
Dude, I'll meet you at Lucy's.
Lucy's?
For Lucy, not Lucy's.
Well, there's a Lucy's
Lucy.
restaurant. It's like a breakfast place right next to Lucy. But there's also the sports bar to the left of Lucy. To her right. If she's facing the ocean, it's to the left.
Yeah.
If the window butthole is facing you, it's on your left.
The window butthole?
She has her butthole. Have you seen Lucy?
Oh, I forgot.
Her
It's right
butthole
there.
is a window.
That's right. I forgot. Well,
Love that damn elephant.
I think we're just coming up with a list of just prospecting advertisers right now. What if we got all these people as
Lucy's
advertisers?
probably not the one to be doing it because a couple years ago she had to do a Save Lucy campaign because she needed new paint. And apparently it costs 10 G's worth.
They don't have a lot of disposable income right now to spend on advertising on the Scoop. We understand. Try again another year.
You plant the seed.
Yes, just right now, just cultivating it. Then you do not follow through on the rest of that movie line. Even you should have your limits at this point. Anyway, big thank you to Colin for talking to us there. So let's get to some basketball recruiting news. So things are getting interesting now for Temple. Not interesting in the way that anybody has committed recently. Again, for the class of 2020, Temple only has one commit in the books right now, Jaleel White from Wildwood Catholic. However, his teammate Tosh Thweatt, who Temple has spent probably the better part of 2 years recruiting. Yeah. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. A couple hours ago, Tosh Thweatt, who was on his official visit to West Virginia, announced his commitment to West Virginia on Instagram. Not really surprised, but he kind of talked about...
there was a little bit of a question about with Jalen Bridges committing, would they have a spot for Taj? Turns out, yes. And turns out they probably put his feet to the fire a little bit and pulled the trigger.
I don't know the exact ins and outs of their scholarship situation. So Bridges comes in as a 2019 guy. He's going to redshirt.
Yep.
Who knows what they're moving around to get him in? But again,
no, they have the scholarship to get him in.
Right.
That was always the case. It was just whether or not they wanted to take him and Thweatt in sort of the same class that are similar positions.
Yeah, and they had some other guys coming in. So this could most likely set off some dominoes for Temple. We've been talking about this on our basketball message boards. Now, Mikeal Brown-Jones, the former Roman Catholic, went to Roman Catholic, played at Girard College, went down to IMG, had committed to Penn State, decommitted. Now, he was on his official visit to VCU this past weekend. A couple of sources we have talked to have said that they would not be surprised if he committed to VCU. There was at least one source who talked to me and said, wouldn't be surprised if he committed on the spot. He sent out some tweet this weekend that said, change of plans, stay tuned, or something like that.
Yeah, pretty much that.
Now, he has not committed to VCU yet. Now, as of now, he is still set to take his official visit to Temple. Flies in Thursday night, so Temple's still in the mix with him. One source I spoke with today who's really familiar with his recruitment said he'll still take the visit to Temple. As of now, he's still a heavy VCU lean, but we'll see. But what it appears to be now, based off of some people we've talked to, is now people seem to think that Temple's likely to get either Mikeal Brown-Jones or Obinna Anochili-Killen. So if Mikeal commits to VCU, Obinna most likely, I think Temple's in a good spot for him, because you have to remember that VCU has recruited both these guys. And I can't remember if we talked about this on the show last week. Somebody I talked to had said that Obinna was actually kind of hoping at some point for a West Virginia offer,
yep.
being down there.
That's not gonna
That's
happen
pretty much off the table for him now. So again, this could set off some dominoes there. So we'll keep an eye on Mikeal Brown-Jones' visit to Temple this coming weekend. The interesting thing now, though, that we're surprised by is we're sitting around yesterday.
It's my surprise face.
Yes.
Very legitimate
Face
surprise.
for podcasting.
It's rude.
I'm just saying we can't see.
Oh,
You have a nice face. We'll get into this later on in the mailbag.
You too.
You're throwing Latin at me. No, you have a
Et tu?
et
In
tu,
Latin,
right.
it's et tu. I did e2 like and you.
E2. Yeah.
It's Spanish.
You learn something new every day. Anyway, you have here an interesting situation where now Lynn Greer, who we got asked about time and again and again and again and again, we would say, doesn't look like he's coming to Temple, look like he's coming to Temple. And then every once in a while, out of the side of our mouth, we say, these things are fluid, stay tuned.
It's called hedging your bets.
Yes, this is why we say this stuff. We're sitting around yesterday, Pat Lawless tweets out that Lynn Greer III is now taking an official visit to Temple in the last weekend of September. So
Georgia Tech game, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this gets interesting now. Your thoughts on this?
I guess at this point, this is my 11th year doing this. I guess at this point I shouldn't be surprised by things anymore because, I can go back a couple years to the class of 2017 where it seemed like they didn't have a chance at this kid or this kid, and then things break their way and it works out. I'm a little surprised. Everything we'd kind of heard was that Lynn Greer, the idea of, it was never even close to a foregone conclusion that he was just going to follow his dad's legacy. He's moved around high schools a couple times. Now he's back at Rome, and it seemed like traveling wasn't really an issue for him. I think we literally might have said this last week or 2 weeks ago. If I closed my eyes and pictured Lynn Greer in college, I would have said it's like a Southern ACC school or an SEC school is where he ends up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from the sounds of it, it sounds like Temple's in pretty good shape there. I don't even know. Originally, he's scheduled to visit Florida this weekend. I don't even know if that's still on the table.
Yeah, we have not been able to find out just yet to verify if he is still taking that official to Florida. Now, Rivals had him listed with offers from Iowa, Marquette, Miami, Oregon. In the latest, now Rivals is redoing their top 150. They're updating their rankings in the next couple of days. As of now, Lynn is the 98th overall player.
92nd.
92nd.
I mean, he's a top 100.
Top 100 player, 22nd overall player at his position and point guard in the country. So he's received a ton of recruiting attention. But again, the impression that we always got was there was kind of this mutual understanding between both sides that Lynn wanted to leave the area. Source I spoke with yesterday said it could be a combination of him kind of coming around and coming to his senses and really kind of maybe locking in on a program that has been there for him all along. Mm-hmm. Again, he's received some good offers and a lot of high major offers, but getting down to the nitty-gritty of it is kind of maybe getting a sense of who really wants him, who's kind of been just kind of going through the paces with him. So now he's taking a visit at the end of the month. Again, we don't even know if he's taking the Florida visit just yet. And again, we were always told, hey, Temple would be there. I mean, they communicate with Lynn constantly. Lynn II, father is on campus all the time, was a legend at Temple, a terrific guy to talk to. Basically, the understanding I always thought was, hey, we're here. You got a spot here, but if you want to go somewhere else, we understand. Now he's kind of coming back around. So if you end up with Jaleel White, if you end up with Obinna, who's a little bit more of a run the floor big, I'd say maybe Taj has a little bit better of an outside shot than Obinna does, but I know the staff really likes Obinna. They like Mikeal Brown-Jones too, but if you end up with Jaleel White, Obinna, and then maybe you end up with Lynn, you now actually kind of get the class that you originally set out to get, which was a point guard, a point forward, a big, and a shooter, because Lynn can shoot. He's got a nice shooting stroke. I saw him over the summer at the Philly Live event, and that was the one time, the most extended live action I saw of him. So he's playing with Roman. Jalen Durham wasn't in that game, but most of the other guys were there. I mean, he looks the part. He's got a smooth shot. He has a good feel for the game. Maybe his recruitment has dropped off a little bit, but at the end of the day, if this is your class, and again, we say if because, Lynn hasn't committed anywhere yet, Obinna hasn't committed anywhere yet, but this is, I've had fun following this. This has been some interesting drama over the last couple of days.
It's another one of those things where, in hindsight, I mean, if you told me right now, it seems like, okay, this is all coming together pretty quickly. They have a chance of pretty much having this class wrapped up in the next couple of weeks if everything works out the way that, not necessarily that it looks like it's going to work out, but it could work out that way. But then in hindsight, you look back at it, and usually September is the month where all this stuff comes together.
Right.
Even in 2017, the aforementioned 2017 class, there was about a 5-week stretch where they got everybody. Where they got Nate Pierre-Leeway, they got J.P. Warman, they got Dre Perry, and they got Justin Hamilton in the span of like 5 weeks, all of which started in September. So I think this is a situation with basketball especially where people really start to realize, like, hey, it might not have been my first choice right away. Maybe I didn't really consider Temple, but now if I don't consider Temple might not be there in a little bit. So it's interesting. If you'd asked me 72 hours ago if I thought it was going to happen, I probably would have scoffed. And now you're starting to see guys like Corey Evans, Rivals national recruiter, just put in, or national recruiting analyst, just put in a prediction for Lynn to commit to Temple. So we're a little bit on Lynn watch. I'll pose this to you right now. Let's say Mikeal Jones comes in Thursday night or Friday. He's here for a couple days. He's back in town. He leaves. He makes his commitment. Let's say he commits to VCU early next week. Let's say that happens. What do you think the timeline is for Obinna?
I mean, unless somebody comes in and gums up the process, whether it's a South Carolina, because they've kind of been lurking on the outside. A couple of other programs I've heard kind of have him on their depth chart a little bit.
The only official visit he's taken is New Mexico, but they don't really seem like they're in it.
Yeah. And Mikeal Brown-Jones also has New Mexico on his list too, but I don't know if
Love
I think
Albuquerque.
Yeah, great town.
Big Breaking Bad fans.
Yeah, never been there. But unless another program kind of comes in and, like I said, gums things up or makes things interesting, I can't imagine he waits too long.
Right.
Unless somebody really gets in his ear and says, if you wait till the spring, more offers are going to open up again.
Which, again, if little LeBron Gauss that comes in January ends up being 6'9", I've said this a million times before, he's not committing to basketball until spring. Because if you're a big man, your offers go up like 3 notches in the spring.
Yeah. LeBron Gauss.
LeBron Gauss.
Did you just
Breaking news here.
broke the
complete
first name.
unison, LeBron Gauss.
LeBron Gauss. Wow. To live up to that name.
Yeah, so...
And then he turns out to be 5'8".
God, if
5'10".
If he's lucky.
If he's lucky.
I think it's 5'10", good for him.
There you go. Well, it'll be a quick
I mean,
point.
my
guard.
wife's pretty short. So
Yeah. You never know. You never know how these things turn out. Anyway, I don't know. I can't imagine if his desire is to indeed commit in the fall. I can't imagine it'll be too long because VCU will be off the table, West Virginia will be off the table. So this could fall together in really interesting fashion for Temple. So let's get to the mailbag because we actually have a lot of basketball-centric questions in the mailbag here. So we'll rehash some of the stuff and kind of give you some new stuff here as well. So we'll go to the mailbag here. These are questions from Twitter, from the message board, some football, some hoops. Appreciate you guys chiming in on this. First one from the message board comes from Mission Man. All right, we scheduled a win. That said, what 5 things impressed you the most during play? And 2 of 2, what's one thing that was most impressive when the players weren't on the field? I'm not sure.
Start with the first thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you 5. I'm going to give you things that impressed me. We talked about it earlier. The game plan itself, the fluidity of getting plays in from the sideline, Ramon Davis. I might give you 5. Ifan Maje. I'll give you 4. Those are the 4 things that impressed me.
I'll give you Jaden Blue.
Sure.
Give you
Isaiah Wright had a
Brandon.
career high in catches.
Yeah,
I'll be curious to see how they get him involved because it seemed like a lot of times they were kind of shoehorning things to him on the shorter route.
Yeah.
Felt like he might have tried to do too much and kick returning, but See what happens.
Brandon Mack did what he was supposed to do. 9 catches, 130 yards.
Right off the bat, you got him the ball 11 times.
Yeah.
He gave 3 carries and 8 catches.
Yeah,
Which is exactly what Mike Aaron McKie was going to do.
Yeah, a lot of what they did made sense. What impressed me when the players was one thing that was most impressive when the players weren't on the field.
I don't necessarily understand.
I don't know
question.
what that. I don't know
Everything
what
else
that
is pretty much
means.
the same. Cheesesteaks were still the same. The fly-in was still the same.
Okay, was fairly festive.
Latte was the same.
Yeah.
It seemed like college football, despite it being hot as hell.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And Temple fans need to come to games. Temple fans need to get to games, watch football, and if you want to be treated like a big-time program,
Right.
show up to your home opener.
Well,
Show
we'll
up
see.
to your season opener.
Maryland and Georgia Tech are kind of their barometers, right?
Right.
You would hope that, especially for the Georgia Tech game, that those stands are the number of the announced attendance starts with a 3.
Yeah. Next question comes from the message board, TU1834. Assuming that Brown Jones is essentially committed to VCU, how does Temple navigate a potentially likely, as previously reported, Anochili-Killen commitment while still recruiting both Thweet and Lynn? So this message board question, this mailbag question, was submitted to us before Tosh Thweet committed. So now with him out of the mix,
Turns out it didn't impact it.
yeah, you don't have to really worry about this. So Tosh took care of that for you. So on to the next question. Appreciate the question. West Coast Al from the message board. What is the most ideal way Temple can round out this class? Seems like we have 2 spots and 4 possible recruits. Again, sort of the same thing here. 2 possible spots. You could fill it out with Obinna or Mikeal Brown-Jones and Lynn Greer III. 4 possible recruits. I don't know who the 4th, if he's talking about Clifford Omuri,
Yeah,
who
don't
they
think that's
really.
gonna happen.
I
I think
you got him here for an unofficial, but no.
Right. I think the ideal world is, you get Clifford Omori and maybe Lynn Greer, and you look and say, look, we got these 2 4-star recruits, and we got a guy we really like, Jaleel White, that we think has a big future. I think the more realistic ideal way is that Lynn commits on his visit, and that Obinna commits sometime before September, and then all of a sudden you can paint this picture of, we got these 3 guys that we really like. Look at this. One's a top 100 recruit. He's a legacy guy. He's a Roman guy who they haven't gotten since Mark Jackson.
Right.
He decided to stay home. He did this. Look at us. And then it's a quote-unquote successful first class for
Yeah, I agree.
Aaron McKie.
Clifford's case, again, he was here for an unofficial. He's
It's
tight
hard to
with
say no to Kentucky.
he's tight with Josh Pierre-Louis, but he's a long shot at this point. I agree with you on everything else you said. Next question from the message board from Dawood B1. Is there any possible scholarship that can come open if we're in position to land 4 guys we covet? Again, don't think that's going to happen.
So. I guess if you really, really wanted to hypothesize or roster bait it, I would say, well, maybe there's a chance that if things don't go well this year, that Dre Perry maybe says, hey, I got 1 more year, let me find something. But I don't think they're anywhere close to wanting to run anybody off the team. I think they like the roster that they have. I think if they can add the 3 guys that we just talked about to that roster for next year, they'd be pretty happy about it.
All right, next question comes from Twitter at I Believe Guy, Jack Fatika, a longtime Temple fan. I am sure you will cover basketball recruiting, Thweet, Brown-Jones, Obinna, Anochili-Killen.
Like they hyphenated all 3 of them. Yes. It's a bit hyphen and Achille.
Omori, and now Greer III. Question: With White verbal and 2 remaining spots, could they create room for more than 2 of these guys again?
Doesn't seem
like they'll have to be faced with that.
Doesn't seem like they'd want to be faced with that.
Right. So again, it just goes to show you how quickly things can turn from the time these questions were submitted to the time that Taj commits on his visit. So things change quickly. Life comes at you fast. There's me shoehorning that line. You hated that.
That's fine.
That's fine.
It's very on brand for you.
Next question comes from Twitter. The Tailgate Dad, Andrew Vogt 30. Any reason we weren't wearing the CB 150 patches? He's talking about the college football patches on Saturday. I was told that Temple will be wearing them for the Tulane game. The coaches have them on, so they will be wearing them at some point.
It's what it's like. It's not like this was ever something that was mandated by the NCAA. I think whatever the organization is, which is not the NCAA, gave away those patches for free to all Division I programs and some FCS programs that wanted it and yada yada. But there was never any you have to wear it for this. Yeah. So I think Temple's really trying to hammer home that 75-year anniversary of the Sugar Bowl. 75, 85, 85. I think it's the 85th year. I think it was 1934.
Yes.
So 85th year anniversary of the Sugar Bowl against Tulane. They're doing the quote-unquote throwback jerseys. Love the little emblem on it, and football will be played.
Yeah.
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Really kind of tailed
Yeah, I didn't know
off
where
on
to
that
go. A lot of times I just like to talk and then see if I ever land. Sometimes the plane doesn't land, John. Sometimes it lands in the Hudson.
Well, I mean, I just forced a bad line earlier,
Yeah,
so
it's
we're
fine.
even now. So, next question, JHG722 from the message board. Predict Temple's 2020 class.
I'll say right here at 5:48 p.m. on September 3rd, August 31st, Kyle would have thought it was crazy. I'm going to say Lynn, Greer, Obinna, and Jaleel White.
Yeah, that's what I have to go with too. I mean, it just goes to show you how quickly things can change.
I would focus on that part though. How quickly things could change. Things could change in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So maybe all of a sudden a school that had cooled on one of these guys misses out on somebody.
Yeah.
Florida has like 7 or 8 4-star or better guys coming in on official visits over the next couple of weeks. What if after all that they get the vibe that none of them are going to commit? Or do they all of a sudden rekindle their interest in Lynn Greer? You have no idea.
Yeah. That would be my guess too. That would be my prediction as well. I mean, I do think this weekend will be interesting. Again, we're hearing that Mikeal is a heavy VCU lean at this point, but I don't know. Maybe he really enjoys his Temple visit. We'll see. So if you get him, he's about 6'8", 210, 220. A kid who's played at 3 different schools now. Again, started off at Roman Catholic. I don't know how tight he is with Lynn.
Right.
And then plays at Girard College. Now he's down at IMG Academy. So we'll see. Again, until I hear otherwise, I still hear that he's a heavy VCU lean, but he is taking the Temple visit. A small victory for Temple that they're getting him here. We'll see what happens. But that would be my prediction too. Lynn, Obinna, and of course Jaleel White is already committed. But again, yeah, if we would have been talking about that a couple weeks ago, the Lynn piece of it, I think we were all sitting around yesterday saying, wow. Yeah, especially in the Lynn Greer news. So we'll see how happens there. Next question from Twitter, Steve Ascareggi. Steve, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. At Reggie_Oscar43. With Jalen Bridges committing to West Virginia, and this question is sort of outdated now, no fault of Steve's, what does that mean for Thweet and Temple? Nothing. Turns out it meant nothing. They were able to fit him in. He committed. So again, he is headed to West Virginia. But again, that could clarify the picture for Temple moving forward. Next question from the message board, TU Owls fan 2004. Do you think landing Lynn could legitimately change local recruiting perception and help get Temple a better in with Roman Catholic? I think this is the most pertinent question. I think that's a yes. I think, and I hate to say this because, I mean, Lynn's even if his recruitment has fallen off here a little bit and that maybe he isn't, at the end of the day, getting the interest or the down-to-the-wire interest that he hoped for, still a good basketball player, still a good shooter. If you get him from Roman Catholic and you get him and he's a legacy kid, that's huge for Aaron.
Correct.
Even if for whatever reason Lynn Greer comes here and doesn't become an All-American, doesn't go to the NBA, the optics of it look good.
Yep.
So I would agree with you. Again, you said just a few minutes ago, last time they got a kid out of Roman was Mark Jackson. That was a long time ago. Last time they got a impactful city player, I mean, Shiz is from the city, but he played at the Haverford School. I mean, we're kind of... Yeah, Ramon Moore out of Southern. Even that recruitment, and Ramon was a very good basketball player at Temple. Never made it to the NBA, but was good. You get him out of Southern when kids weren't really coming out of Southern. But yeah, you get Scooty out of Comtech. But a high-profile guy from Roman, that's typically been ACC country, anything but Temple country. Yeah. I agree.
It's everything we talked about with Akeem Hart, but I think amped up another notch or two.
Yes.
Because it's a legacy guy. It's a guy who had a slightly higher recruiting profile than Akeem Hart.
Mm-hmm. Next question comes from What to You from the message board. Do you think Jaden Blue's stats were a product of the poor competition, or can we expect games where he gets that many looks and catches against better competition?
Both. I think kind of in between is actually what I would say. I think his stats were definitely inflated by the fact that he was playing up against Bucknell, who had a lot only lower talent, but like young lower talent. There was a lot of freshmen at defense, a lot of guys that this was their first collegiate game. I think he's good. I think we've heard this. It's not like that he came out of nowhere. It's not like, and no offense to Graham loves him, because it's not like this was Thomas Mattioni, a walk-on wide receiver that all of a sudden had 10 catches for 118 yards. None
of us would take a shot at Downingtown.
No,
we're all
legitimately not.
You're Downingtown. I'm Downingtown. We're all Downingtown. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We've heard his name since last spring. He had a good spring game last year. had a bit of a role last season until things kind of didn't work out. And he had to kind of take a step back for a little while. Had a good spring this year. So I think it kind of bounced back that, okay, he's always been there. I think he's talented. I think he's going to put up numbers. I don't think he's going to all of a sudden put up 1,500 yards and be an All-American. I think he has a role in this team. I think he's probably the third or fourth best wide receiver on the team right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think, again, that's why you play a game like this. Even if Jaden doesn't go for 10 and 117 and a touchdown all the time, he has been, I mean, I know Rod Carey said this in the press conference, and it sounds like coach speak, but we have seen him, literally, like the last several spring practices or preseason practices that I've seen over the last year and a half, he always stands out as a guy who's catching the ball. Very rarely do you see him drop the ball. So for him, it's nice to see him finally have that pay off in a game. I think he's going to be, I mean, he's got some speed. He's got legit, I don't know if he has like NFL speed, but he's got some speed and he's got great hands. I think he could become that check down guy for Russo, where you look to the sideline really quickly and then maybe he catches the ball and he can maybe make a guy miss. So I agree with you. I do think it's a combination of both. But again, you get him confidence. You get Ramon Davis confidence. I mean, you could see, again, we know the competition's going to be tougher in the next several weeks for them, but Ramon Davis looked fast. He looked like he was able to accelerate, and then when he comes in and says, yeah, I dropped 25 pounds or 20 pounds over the last couple months, it showed. He looked pretty quick.
I picked him right up.
You picked him right up. You're due to go on your soup diet pretty quickly, right?
Soup diet's more of like a summer situation because it's an anticipation of football. Once football starts, I'm just eating like crap and drinking a lot more, so it becomes like a woof.
Yeah.
Oh, bite down the piece of wood and see if we can
walk
get through
around
this.
Meg and say, I'm putting on baby weight too.
No, I was just, Meg hates when I said that. I've been saying this for about 6 years. I say, quote, who do I have to impress? I said, I'm married. I found my wife. I have a kid coming. Who do I go to impress? I just keep putting on.
Her response is what to that?
Me. You're supposed to impress me.
Yeah.
That's her response.
Love Meg.
But, I mean, I think that game, the Bucknell game, was particularly helpful with things like that because you just mentioned two guys, a true freshman and a redshirt sophomore. So it kind of gives glimpses, even if, hey, this turns out to be the high point of Ramon Davis' season and he just becomes like a contributor after this, even if Jaden Blue never surpasses the century mark again, you have this game to look at and be like, well, look what happened when they got serious burn here. Look what happens when Jaden Blue had the opportunity to have 13 balls thrown his way. Like, they've proven they can be successful at this level. So I think the game had value and things like that, and Jaden Blue and Ramon Davis took advantage of the situation.
Right, so I'm just double-checking Twitter here. I think those are all the questions. We have one more left, texted in from our good buddy Pat Egan from 97.5 The Fanatic. This one is a two-parter, as Pat typically likes to do here, and this we're going to have fun with this one. All right, question number one. Are there any legacy recruits on the horizon other than Greer? Like, has Sergio almost had a kid yet who's a stud? We'll get to that one first, then we'll get to his second one. I had a couple written down here.
Go for it.
This is so Dustin Salisbury. Those of you who remember Dustin Salisbury from the end of the Cheney era, the beginning of the Fran Dunphy era, his son Damaj legitimately looks like a pretty good young basketball player. Just won a 15 under AAU championship back in June. Dustin tweets about him a lot, puts stuff on social media. Dustin's been playing in Tunisia. So he's away a lot, but is very excited about his son. Kid looks legit. So who knows? They might have their eye on him. He will be a class of 2023 player. Some of you may know about Tahir Whitehead's younger brother, Derek Whitehead. Now, of course, Tahir played football at Temple, is now with the Raiders, making several appearances on Hard Knocks. His brother also appears to be legit. Derek's 22, class of 2022, small forward. Rivals has him with interest from West Virginia, Rutgers. He is at, how do you pronounce that school? Montverde? Montverde.
I think I always say
one of the bigger prep schools in the entire country. So, yeah, I mean, legitimately one of the top spots in the entire country for basketball. I do not believe Sergio almost has kids yet, Pat. I mean, I think he just got married.
Derek looks like he's slated to be like
a very high level
recruit. Yeah. He's already got offers from Rutgers and Seton Hall.
Yeah.
You feel like, I mean, maybe Tahir Whitehead says, hey, go to Temple, but for the most part, I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, I know the coaches are a lot of people are aware of him. He's legit. He's supposed to be pretty good, and I think they're aware of Dustin's kid as well.
There's another Pierre Louis coming.
Yes. What's his name?
Christian?
Yes, Christian Pierre Louis. So who knows?
He's going into his freshman year, or something like that.
I believe so. So that'll be something.
Time continues to to tick on.
Yes.
Kids are coming up the pipeline.
Yeah.
Now to the other part of this question.
The other part of this question, also, Pat says in all caps. I didn't know how to feel when I read this one. You both lived with each other.
Yes,
We
one
did.
year.
Yes. So what was your favorite thing about living with the other, and what was the worst thing about living with the other? And Pat has here in parentheses, and this is directed at me, texted me. I look forward to you taking the high road and saying there was nothing bad, and then Kyle rattling off a list and letting Pandora out of the box.
Go ahead.
No, you just cracked your fingers.
No, you go ahead. Start with say some nice things about me.
Say some nice things. I like people who like
Yeah.
me. You were a great roommate.
Yeah, there you go.
You're fun, entertaining. This is we're gonna get teased for this. So when I was looking at houses, so Kyle was graduating from Temple. I'm looking at a house by myself that I'm going to purchase, and Kyle actually came on a couple of trips with me to look at houses.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
With
that.
my old
Dear
real estate
God.
agent. So we're looking at places in East Passyunk, all over the place. Kyle moved in with me for a year before he moved in with his now wife, Meg. Oh, God. You had your spot on the left-hand side of the couch that was firmly indented there where you would just stay on your laptop. Anytime I had an interesting story to tell you, you would flip your laptop down and be like, go on. You had Music Video Monday with Paul where you guys would just each drink a six-pack from the bottle shop
on Passion.
and mostly watch Taylor Swift videos and proclaim your love for Taylor Swift. Oh man, I can't think of any bad.
You definitely have some bad things.
You joked about you left what? You left gum in your pants and got gum in the dryer.
No, I think it was a pen. I left a pen and it exploded
Yeah.
in the dryer, and you got all sassy with me. One time you sent me a very angry text message about not cleaning out the dryer liner, like the dryer lint. And I was like,
I did?
Yeah, you were like, that's how house fires start. I was like, relax. Cut it out.
That's how.
Yeah, it's a nice place. I like the location. Obviously, I enjoyed living with you. Good food, good bars near there. Bad part.
Should I crawl under the table?
No, I don't think it's mostly about you. You charged me a shit ton. I was paying $500 for a room that was literally probably like 6 feet by 7 feet. It was for some reason it was the hottest damn room in the building. You would have to Meg and I would legitimately go out we're gonna go out for the night, and we'd turn on the air conditioner in the room beforehand and then come back 3 hours later for it to be cooled down. So $500 a month plus utilities, plus half of your electric and half of your cable and half of your water. And
You're
all
living
that.
there too.
Yeah, but that's not really how it's supposed to be one or the other. You could have charged me $300 and a half of utilities. $500 should have included utilities in it, but it didn't.
You're doing just fine for yourself now.
Yeah,
Everything
things worked out fine. But at the time, it didn't. At the time, there were times I was like, yeah, it might be a little late with the rent this week. I was only working 20 hours a week, taking baths, watching TV a lot.
Yeah, you had a part-time job at that point.
Yeah, no longer do, unfortunately. No, other than that, there wasn't anything majorly bad.
I feel like Pat's going to be disappointed.
The cat pissed in our air conditioner the one time. Remember that?
Yeah.
This little feral street cat that was
Yes.
walking around, pissed and shit into the huge interior air conditioner, and it just
Yes.
stunk up the place.
Yep.
That
I
you
forgot
need,
about
a
that.
professional cleaner for that.
Yes, yeah.
You would always your fridge was creepily empty.
Really?
I understand that you were a single guy, I was a not married guy. I was with a girl at the time.
You're buying burritos from...
Buying burritos from 7-Eleven, but you would open up the fridge and it would be a 6-pack of water or beer or whatever, and then whatever leftover pizza from Mara's you had, and then that's pretty much it.
Cooked?
It looked like you moved into the kitchen.
Really?
Yeah, it was creepily empty. I'm sure that was off-putting for the parade of South Philly women you brought through that house. They'd come and be like, oh, who are you? Don't care. Look at this fridge. Look, he's got baking soda. That's it. Is this going to be a Dexter moment where they're going to find me?
I had the hiccups earlier, and I think I just got them back now. And see, I don't remember that, but maybe I'm just looking at the...
Creepily empty.
You eventually moved in with Meg. You guys moved over to where, 16th and Christian. Then you buy the house in Glenside. When Chelsea moved in with me, yeah, I guess I had food in the fridge. I thought I did.
I don't think so. It would just be leftover pizza or whatever. And then, yeah, a 6-pack. This is 2011. It's a 6-pack of Propel or something. This might give my water. And then that would be that.
Propel?
And then I would have
I didn't have Propel. That was yours?
No,
it's just an
exaggeration.
Okay.
I don't know what it really is. And I would have my food, which, terrible because I was 22. I was just eating cardboard, basically. But
You ordered from Not Just Pizza once, didn't realize you ordered delivery and didn't realize it was right around the corner.
yeah, I once ordered from Not Just Pizza, and they called me because I was like hungover, and I ordered food at like 2 p.m. I wanted breakfast food, and they called me, and they're like, just so you know, we're a pizza place, so we've been making pizzas for the last 7 hours, so we could make you eggs, but they're gonna taste like pizza. And I was like, huh.
They actually said
Yeah,
that.
I was like, let me think about it. I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And I changed my order to something else.
I miss the food around there. Johnny's, 12th and Wolf, terrific
Johnny's
place.
kind of fire while we were there.
It
right?
did.
Yeah.
Then it was back.
And then I remember I was walking home from a bar and it caught on fire. And I called you and you ignored button me. I was like, this. I was like,
I ignored by
yeah, like you were somewhere or something. So you ignored button me. I was like, Johnny's is on fire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. So, Pat, I'm not sure it's what you were looking for. I'm sure there are other
I once
stories we could tell.
passed out on the toilet and broke off your toilet roll dispenser.
Yeah.
I was using it. Again, I was like 22. So I was 22. One of my very good buddies lived very close to us. We frequented past junk bars quite a bit. Came back, had to use the bathroom, rested my head on the toilet roll holder, and it just ripped out. It ripped out the wall. And then I think you ended up like I couldn't get it back in, so we ended up just like spackling it, and you bought a standalone toilet dispenser.
I forgot about that.
Again, $500 a month, so take a little bit out of that
Ugh.
king's ransom you were
Very,
charging me
very
to live
reasonable.
in this room. No.
Yes.
When I moved into a much bigger place with Meg, it was less money. I was saving money moving into Graduate Hospital to get my own place with Meg. a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, kitchen, all this was less money. And here we
As
are.
I said, things turned out just fine for you. You have a beautiful house with a hot tub,
Oh, I'm talking about my business.
a dog, Riggins.
Yeah, Reagan's. Anyway.
Anyway, well, thanks for the question, Pat. Thanks to all of you for sitting through that story about
little riled
breaking
up
the breaking the toilet paper holder. Who knows what next week will hold? Could be
Maryland
some
preview.
more Maryland preview, possibly some more recruiting news. I would imagine. I don't know why we bother trying to hold ourselves to this. I was about to say we might know by this time next week where Mikeal Brown-Jones is headed, whether he is blown away by his Temple visit and commits to Temple, or he continues to be leaning heavily toward VCU.
I would say my gut says we know where Mikeal's going. We don't know where Obinna's going yet, and obviously we don't know where Lynn's going yet because his official's not yet.
Yeah, so it's going to get interesting over the next few weeks. Stay tuned. Again, thank you to all of you who checked in with mailbag questions. Thanks again to Colin Thompson for joining us as always. Thank you to Graham Foley, our wonderful intern who had to
Social
duck out
media
to go to
guru.
class. Had to duck out mid-podcast to go to class.
Social media guru
Couldn't figure out how a mic worked on Saturday.
Oh, stop it. Anyway, thanks again
Love you,
for
Graham.
checking in. Love you, Graham. We'll talk to you guys next week.